The night skies over Veli's Prime were never meant to know fear. For thousands of years, the jewel world of the Thauran Empire had stood as the center of civilization, a place where imperial banners fluttered proudly in the solar winds, where no enemy dared to trespass. From the high towers of the Senate to the sprawling orbital shipyards above, the Empire had ruled unchallenged, their fleet stretching from one end of the galaxy to the other. But tonight, something was wrong. It started as a whisper on the edge of sensor arrays, a flicker of light far beyond the patrol perimeter, too faint to be a star, too steady to be debris. At first, the watch officers dismissed it. A glitch, perhaps, an old satellite igniting. But the light grew brighter, stronger, and then closer. "Admiral," said a trembling voice from the sensor pit. "We have a contact." Admiral Serith Valen turned from the viewport, her expression sharp and unreadable. She was a veteran of 100 border wars, a woman who had faced pirate fleets, rebel uprisings, and alien coalitions without ever blinking. Nothing surprised her anymore, or so she thought. "Show me," she said calmly. The main holotable flickered to life. A single dot pulsed against the darkness, racing toward the inner system at impossible speed. No transponder, no beacon, no recognized engine signature. "What is its classification?" Serith asked. The sensor officer swallowed. "Unknown, Admiral. Its velocity exceeds FTL's safety limits. It's decelerating directly into orbit." Serith frowned. "No ship can do that. No known Imperial ship could, at least." Every vessel in the galaxy obeyed the same rules. Hyperspace entry required days of preparation, braking from superluminal velocity even longer. Yet this contact had dropped from faster than light and halted in real space within minutes. That wasn't just unheard of, it was impossible. Across the bridge, the crew whispered nervously. Rumors spread like wildfire. Maybe it was an alien artifact, or a forgotten Imperial superweapon. Some even muttered about the M1L, a long-extinct precursor race. But one theory silenced them all. "It's Terran," someone breathed. The word hung in the air like a curse. "Humans, a backwater species from the galactic rim. Technologically primitive, politically fractured, tolerated more out of curiosity than respect. They built clumsy ships and crude weapons. They traded scrap metals and organic foodstuffs in the Imperial markets. They were harmless. And yet, the data did not lie. The object carried a faint but unmistakable Terran energy signature, one that matched outdated Earth reactors from centuries ago. Only this vessel's output was billions of times stronger. It was as if someone had taken a campfire and turned it into a star. "That's impossible," his commander Yalin, Serith's second-in-command. "Terrans can't even reach the core. Their ships would bane out before crossing half the distance." "Then explain this," Serith said quietly. The bridge fell silent as the mysterious craft broke through the system's outer rim. Its size readings updated in real time, and jaws dropped. The intruder was enormous. Not merely larger than the Empire's dreadnoughts, 10 times larger. Its smooth, obsidian hull reflected no light. No weapon ports, no shield arrays, no thruster banks. It drifted with eerie grace, like a shadow cast across the stars. Still no communication. Serith asked. "None, Admiral. Hail attempts are absorbed. It's like they're being swallowed." Serith approached the viewport, her reflection merging with the black shape now visible against the planet's blue horizon. "What kind of ship absorbs a transmission?" "None," Yalin said. "Unless..." He didn't finish. The implication hung heavy in the air. Unless this ship wasn't just new, it was built on principles the Empire didn't understand. Fleet Command was notified within seconds. Then the Senate. Then the Emperor himself. Across the planet, news channels erupted with breaking reports. Unidentified vessel detected above Veli's Prime. Terran's signature confirmed. Empire on alert. Billions of citizens poured into the streets, staring upward in confusion and fear. They had never known danger in their skies. The Empire's fleets guarded every world, every orbit. Yet now, above their capital, something vast and alien floated beyond their reach. Serith's fleet moved swiftly into formation. Hundreds of warships, battleships, carriers, and cruisers locked into a defensive grid. Targeting systems tracked the intruder. Warheads primed. Shields charged. The message was clear. One wrong move, and the Empire would unleash its full fury. But the ship didn't flinch. It didn't power weapons. It didn't attempt evasive maneuvers. It simply watched. Is it scanning us? Sareth asked. No readings, Admiral. Is it charging weapons? Negative. Then what is it doing? The answer came with chilling simplicity. Nothing, the sensor officer whispered. It's just there. 4 minutes that felt like hours, the two forces stared at each other across the void, the might of 1,000 worlds against a single silent intruder. Admiral, Yalin murmured, should we open fire? Sareth didn't respond. She was watching the readouts, eyes narrowing. The ship's gravitational signature was wrong. It wasn't just resisting planetary pull. It was bending space around it, as if space itself bowed to its presence. Do not engage, she ordered at last. Not until we understand what we're facing. But if it is Terran? If it's Terran, Sareth said, then humanity has done something we thought impossible. The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances. The Empire had long dismissed humans as a minor footnote in history. But if this ship was truly theirs, then they were no longer a footnote. They were a threat. Across Veli's Prime, military channels exploded with theories. Maybe it was stolen Imperial technology. Maybe an ancient relic reactivated. Perhaps a trap by one of the border powers. No one could accept the obvious truth. Humans had built this. Hours passed. The standoff continued. And then, without warning, the impossible happened again. The intruder moved. It drifted closer to the planet, ignoring the hundreds of warnings broadcast at it. Missiles were fired, a test volley. They disintegrated mid-flight, reduced to dust by an invisible field. Even Sareth, who had seen weapons that split moons, felt her blood run cold. What did it just do? She demanded. We don't know, said the weapons officer. Our senses can't even detect the effect. The ship halted again, this time directly above the Imperial Palace. It hung there, silent and unshakable, like a god gazing down upon an anthill. And then a signal pierced the silence. It wasn't Imperial Standard. It wasn't any language in the Central Archives. But Sareth recognized it. Ancient, rough, unrefined. English. A single message echoed across every channel. We are here. The bridge was dead silent. No one dared speak. No one dared breathe. If the humans had truly built this, then everything the Empire believed about them, about itself, was a lie. And somewhere deep in her bones, Admiral Sareth Valen felt something she had not felt in decades. Fear. The message echoed across every frequency, translated and repeated by trembling Imperial operators. We are here. 3 words. That was all the mysterious ship had sent. 3 words that threw the Thalren Empire, rulers of half the known galaxy, into chaos. In the high spires of the Imperial Senate, politicians shouted over one another. Some demanded the ship be seized immediately. Others warned against provoking an unknown enemy. And in the center of it all, the Emperor Thalvin IX sat in cold silence, his golden eyes fixed on the holographic projection of the massive vessel hovering over Veli's Prime. It cannot be Terran, hissed Senator Koresh, pounding a clawed fist on the table. Humans are primitives. Their fleets are built from scrap metal and outdated cores. This, he gestured to the dark, silent Leviathan, is beyond even our best engineering. It bears their signature, replied Admiral Sareth, standing before the Senate's central dais. Her voice was calm, but her hands remained clasped tightly behind her back. The reactor emissions match Terran frequencies. The linguistic patterns in their transmission are unmistakable. Then they must have stolen it. Koresh snapped. From the Aserai, perhaps. Or the Myrdal ruins. Humans steal. They do not build. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Pride ran deep in the veins of the Thalran. They were the inheritors of 1,000 empires, the masters of technologies others could only dream of. The thought that humans, the farmers and traders from the rim, had built something so powerful was beyond insulting. It was unthinkable. Sereth waited for the noise to die down before speaking again. With respect, senators, the evidence does not support theft. Their energy signature is unique. The whole composition is unknown to our records. This vessel is new. It is theirs. Then destroy it, growled another senator. Wipe it from our skies and remind these insects of their place. The emperor finally stayed. His voice was quiet, yet it cut through the noise like a blade. And if we fail? The chamber froze. No one dared to answer. No one dared to imagine it. The imperial fleet, proud and invincible, firing on a single ship and losing. Sereth stepped forward. Majesty, we do not yet understand what we are facing. The ship moved from hyperspace to orbit in under 8 minutes. Our missiles disintegrated before reaching it, and our scans cannot penetrate its hull. If we attack without understanding it, we may reveal our weakness. The Emperor regarded her for a long moment. And if we do nothing? Sereth hesitated. Then the galaxy will know we are afraid. The Emperor leaned back in his throne. A risk we cannot allow. Back aboard the flagship Vigilant, the fleet remained in formation around the unknown vessel, weapons primed but silent. Admiral Sereth returned to the bridge, her mind heavy with the Senate's arrogance. Any change? She asked. None, Admiral, Commander Yalin replied. It's holding position above the palace, still absorbing our hails, still ignoring our warnings. And the civilians? Riots in 3 districts. People are demanding answers. Sereth stared at the black shape dominating the view screen. It hung there with absolute confidence, as though the entire Imperial fleet arrayed around it was beneath notice. That alone terrified her more than any weapon could. Deploy the Aegis drones, she ordered. Let's see if it reacts to a close approach. Moments later, a swarm of small, unmanned probes launched from the Vigilant and darted toward the intruder. As they closed the distance, Sereth leaned forward. Status. Probes are within 2,000 kilometers, 1,500. Then, without warning, the drone's signals vanished. They are gone, the sensor officer whispered. No explosion, no debris, just gone. Were they destroyed? Yalin asked. No, it's like they never existed. Sereth's stomach tightened. What in the stars are we dealing with? Across the Empire, news of the encounter spread faster than the Imperial censors could contain it. Citizens filled public forums with wild theories. The ship was a god, a weapon, a time machine, a ghost. And everywhere, one question echoed. How did humans build this? In the outer colonies, border governors laughed. Impossible, they scoffed. The Terrans can barely build cruisers. This is Imperial propaganda. But deep down, a seed of fear began to grow. Because if humans had truly mastered technology beyond the Empire's reach, then no one was safe from their rise. The arrogance of the Thalren did not waver. In the Imperial Military Command, fleet admirals dismissed the incident as a Terran bluff. It's a stolen prototype, they said. A trick to scare us. They prepared invasion plans for Sol and Earth, confident that a swift strike would end this nonsense before it spread. Yet in her private quarters, Admiral Sereth studied the data again and again. Every reading, every anomaly, every strange impossibility told her the same story. This was no bluff. It was real. And if one ship existed, there could be more. Admiral, Yalin said softly from the doorway. Command is requesting your plan of action. Sereth didn't look up. And what do they suggest? They want to seize the ship. Board it. Take it apart. Sereth almost laughed. Board that? Yalin, we can't even touch it. Our probes vanish before reaching it. Our missiles are turned to dust. If we send troops, they'll disappear too. He hesitated. Then what do we do? Sereth turned toward the window, her gaze locked on the dark monolith above the planet. We watch, we learn, and we pray they came in peace. Hours later, another transmission arrived, again in English. But this time, it was longer. We are the Terran Vanguard. We come not as vassals, not as subjects, but as equals. We request audience with your Emperor. The bridge went silent. Yalan broke it first. An audience. They're asking for diplomacy. Sarith exhaled slowly. Or they're giving us one last chance. Within the hour, the message reached the Emperor himself. Advisors urged him to reject it, to demand unconditional surrender before even speaking. But the Emperor only stared at the 3 simple words at the end of the transmission. We are not your servants. It was arrogance unlike any the Empire had ever seen, from humans, no less. And yet, it was confidence, too. The confidence of a power that knew exactly what it was capable of. The Emperor rose from his throne. Prepare the Grand Chamber, he commanded. If the Terrans wish to speak, we will listen. The order sent shockwaves through the Empire. The Thalran did not negotiate with lesser species. They commanded. They demanded. They ruled. But now, for the first time in centuries, the Empire would meet an outsider as an equal, not because it wished to, but because it had to. As the Imperial envoys made their way to the audience hall and the strange Terran ship remained silent and unshakable above Veli's Prime, Admiral Sarith couldn't shake the feeling gnawing at the back of her mind. This was not the beginning of a negotiation. This was the beginning of something far greater and far more dangerous than the Empire had ever faced. The Grand Chamber of the Imperial Palace had not seen such tension in centuries. It was a place built to intimidate, vast enough to house a battlecruiser's bridge, lined with towering obsidian columns and golden statues of emperors long dead. Treaties had been signed, rebellions crushed, and species humbled. But today, for the first time in living memory, the Thalran Empire waited. And it waited for humans. Emperor Thalvan IX sat on his throne, silent and motionless, flanked by senators, admirals, and elite guards. Admiral Sarith stood at his side, eyes locked on the towering windows that looked out over the skies of Veli's Prime. Beyond them, the dark Terran vessel still hung in orbit like a silent moon, casting its shadow across the imperial capital. Any word? The Emperor asked quietly. None, Majesty, Sarith replied. They have not responded since their message. They continue to ignore hails. Our scans still fail to penetrate their hull. And yet, murmured Senator Koresh, they asked for an audience. Arrogant. Sarith said nothing. She was beginning to realize that arrogance was not what she sensed from the humans. Confidence, yes. Calm, certainly. But arrogance? No. Arrogance was what they had shown. And perhaps, she thought uneasily, it was arrogance that had blinded them for too long. A sudden ripple of energy swept through the chamber. The air shimmered, and at the center of the hall, a pillar of pale blue light erupted from the floor. Imperial guards raised their weapons, but the Emperor lifted a single hand. Stand down, he ordered. The light faded. In its place stood 3 figures. They were humanoid, unmistakably human, but unlike any Terrans the Empire had encountered before. They wore uniforms of sleek black and silver, with a single insignia on their chests, a stylized spiral of stars encircling a rising sun. Their posture was steady, their eyes sharp, and they stood not with the nervousness of emissaries but with the quiet certainty of equals. Your Majesty, said the one in front, his voice firm but respectful. I'm Captain Elias Rourke of the Terran Vanguard. We come in peace, but not in submission. A hush fell over the chamber. Senators stayed in disbelief. This was the envoy, a man from a species they had dismissed as backward and weak. The Emperor studied Rourke in silence. How did you enter this chamber? We asked for an audience, Rourke replied. We assumed it was granted. Sarith's eyes narrowed. No teleportation tech in the Empire could bypass palace shields. Yet these humans had done it without triggering a single alarm. You speak boldly, the Emperor said at last. Yet you stand on our world without invitation. You bring an unknown weapon into our skies. And you speak of peace while threatening our authority. Explain yourselves. Rourke did not flinch. We have no weapon in orbit. The ship above you is called the Dauntless. It is an exploration vessel, though it is capable of defending itself. We came here because the balance of the galaxy is shifting. Humanity will no longer be ignored. Laughter rippled through the Senate chamber. Exploration vessel. Koresh mocked. That monstrosity dwarfs our dreadnoughts. Because your dreadnoughts were built for war, Rourke replied calmly. The Dauntless was built for possibility. Sarah spoke for the first time. You're saying humans built that ship alone? Rourke's gaze met hers. Not alone. Together. It was a simple answer, yet the weight of it struck her harder than any speech. Humanity, once divided into nations and colonies, fractured by politics and distance, had united. And if they had united long enough to build a ship like that? Impossible, Karesh spat. Humans have no such technology. Your people trade for scrap on our borders. Then perhaps, Rourke said, you have not looked closely enough. Above the planet, the Dauntless stared. For hours it had been motionless, a silent observer. Now, energy rippled across its hull, forming a swirling halo of pale blue light. Imperial sensors screamed warnings as reality itself seemed to bend and twist. "Admiral," shouted the sensor officer aboard the Vigilant. "Something's happening." Gravitational distortions across the orbital plane. A flash, brighter than any star, erupted across the sky. And then, space opened. Out of the rift emerged another ship. Then another. Then a dozen more. Each was different in size and shape, yet all shared the same haunting elegance as the Dauntless. Sleek, dark, and silent, they formed a formation around Veli's Prime with perfect precision. "By the stars," Yalin whispered. "How many are there?" "Count increasing," the officer replied. 23, 30, 47. By the time the rift sealed itself, 62 Terran vessels surrounded the Empire's capital. Back in the chamber, the senators erupted in panic. "They are invading," one shouted. "This is an act of war," cried another. But Rourke remained calm. "We do not seek war. We seek recognition. For centuries, the Thalran Empire has dismissed humanity as primitive. You placed us beneath you. You told us we would never reach the core. But we have, and we stand here now to say, those days are over." The Emperor's expression hardened. "And if we refuse this recognition?" Rourke met his gaze without blinking. "Then history will remember you as the first empire to fall, not to force, but to change." Silence fell again, heavier this time. Even the most arrogant senators felt it, the cold weight of possibility. For centuries, the Empire had believed itself untouchable. Now, 62 Terran ships, each defying every known law of science, hung above their world. "Why now?" Sareth asked quietly. "Why reveal yourselves like this?" Rourke's answer was simple. "Because we are ready." Humanity spent centuries watching and learning. You underestimated us, and we allowed it, because it gave us time. Now, we no longer need your approval. We seek only one thing, a place among the great powers of this galaxy. Whether you offer it willingly or history drags you into it, that is your choice. In the silence that followed, even Emperor Thalvin felt something he had never known before: uncertainty. The Empire's fleets were vast, its armies endless, its power unchallenged. But power meant nothing against what one did not understand. Sareth stepped closer to the throne. "Majesty," she said softly, "if we fight them now, we may lose everything." The Emperor stared at the holographic display of the Terran fleet. "And if we yield, we'll lose our pride." "Pride," Sareth murmured, "can be rebuilt. An empire cannot." The Emperor said nothing more. Outside, in the silent dark above Veli's Prime, the Terran fleet waited. They did not move. They did not threaten. They simply were, a reminder that the galaxy was changing and that the Thalran Empire was no longer alone at the top. For the first time in its history, the Empire faced a future it could not control. And somewhere deep within the shadows of the palace, Admiral Sareth allowed herself a single, unsettling thought. Perhaps the humans had never been behind it all. Perhaps they had always been waiting. The Senate chamber had never been so silent. Even the faint hum of the palace shields seemed to fade as Captain Elias Rourke's words lingered in the air. "Whether you offer it willingly or history drags you into it, that is your choice." No one dared speak. The senators, once proud and arrogant, stared at the human envoy with wide, uncertain eyes. The Emperor's face was unreadable, and Admiral Sareth, who had faced death on 100 battlefields without flinching, now felt something she hadn't felt since her first command: doubt. Humans. The word had always been spoken with a hint of dismissal in imperial circles. Humans were traders, colonists, mercenaries. They were clever but clumsy, bold but weak. And yet here they were, standing in the heart of the Empire, with ships the likes of which no Thauren scientist could explain, speaking not as servants or subjects but as equals, or wise, as challengers. It was Karesh, the loudest voice of arrogance, who finally broke the silence. You speak of choice, Terran, but your presence is nothing less than an act of war. 6-2 warships orbiting our capital is not diplomacy, it is intimidation. Rourke turned his gaze toward the senator. If we wished to wage war, Senator, we would not be speaking now. You would already know the outcome. The words hung heavy in the air, and though they were spoken without anger, they felt like thunder. Even Karesh fell silent, his confidence wavering. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. Then tell me, Terran, why are you here? What is it you truly want? Rourke stepped closer, his voice steady and measured. We want what all rising civilizations want, Your Majesty, recognition, respect, and the freedom to stand without a boot on our necks. Sereth raised an eyebrow. A bold claim from a species that only a century ago could barely reach its own moon. Rourke's lips curved into a faint smile. And yet here we are. The Emperor gestured for him to continue. Rourke nodded. For centuries, humanity has watched the stars and dreamed. We stumbled. We failed. We fought among ourselves. And you, the great Thauren Empire, laughed at us. You believed we were too divided, too primitive, too short-lived to ever stand beside you. Because you were, Karesh hissed. Were, Rourke repeated. Not are. He paced slowly across the floor, every step echoing through the chamber. While you looked down on us, we learned from you. While you ignored us, we studied your history, your mistakes, your victories. While you dismissed us, we built something you never saw coming. The Dauntless is not a weapon, it is a symbol. Proof that humanity will no longer wait for your approval. Sereth watched him closely. And what if the Empire refuses to grant you that recognition? Rourke stopped and faced her. Then we will continue without it. And eventually, the galaxy will follow. The quiet certainty in his voice sent a chill through the room. There was no arrogance in his tone, no bluff. Only the weight of inevitability. Hours later, the meeting adjourned. The Emperor gave no promises, and the humans made no demands beyond their message. Yet the Senate could talk of nothing else. They are bluffing, Karesh insisted as the chamber emptied. A show of power, nothing more. A fleet built from stolen technology. Then why can't we scan it? Sereth asked calmly. Why do our missiles vanish before reaching them? Why does their ship bend gravity itself? Karesh had no answer. Few did. Elsewhere across Veli's Prime, panic rippled through the streets. Imperial citizens stared up at the sky where the Terran fleet glittered like a constellation that hadn't existed the day before. Merchants closed their shops. Priests called for calm. Children pointed at the black silhouettes and whispered stories of monsters and gods. And on every world of the Empire, the same question spread faster than light. What happens if humanity is no longer beneath us? In the quiet of her quarters aboard the Vigilant, Admiral Sereth stood alone, watching the Dauntless through the viewport. The ship was motionless, but its presence was overwhelming, as if it was watching her back. You don't want war, she whispered. So what is it you truly want? A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. Commander Yalin entered, holding a datapad. Admiral, new transmission. It's not addressed to the Emperor. It's addressed to everyone. Sereth frowned. From the Terrans? He nodded. They are broadcasting it on every channel in the system. Play it. The room's lights dimmed, and Rourke's voice filled the air once more. Calm, resolute, and impossible to ignore. People of the Thauren Empire, we are humanity. We come not as conquerors, but as partners. For too long, we were told our reach would never extend beyond our sun, that we were too small, too weak, too divided to matter. But we endured. We built. We united. And now, we stand before you, not to kneel, but to rise. The speech echoed across planets and moons, through orbital relays and civilian devices. Even the most remote mining colony heard the words. And with every sentence, the Empire's certainty began to fracture. We do not seek war, but we will no longer accept chains disguised as protection. We will trade as equals. We will explore as equals. We will stand as equals. The message ended with a simple phrase that would be repeated across the galaxy for generations. We are humanity, and we are here to stay. The Emperor listened to the transmission from the palace balcony, his eyes fixed on the dark sky above. Pride and fury battled within him. Never before had anyone spoken to the Empire this way. Never had anyone dared. They challenge our authority, he said softly. They challenge our view of the galaxy, Sereth replied, stepping beside him. Perhaps that is more dangerous. And if we strike them down? Sereth's gaze returned to the Dauntless. Then they become martyrs. And every species you rule will wonder if they, too, can rise. The Emperor said nothing. Below them, the great capital city glowed with the light of a restless people. Above, the Terran fleet held its silent vigil, not attacking, not retreating, simply waiting. Waiting for the Empire to decide what it would become. In a distant corner of the fleet, aboard the Dauntless itself, Captain Rourke stood before the viewing window, watching the planet below. A young officer approached him quietly. "Do you think they'll listen?" she asked. Rourke was silent for a long time. "I don't know," he admitted. "Empires rarely do." "Then why offer peace?" He turned toward her, and for the first time, a faint smile touched his lips. "Because if we're to build something greater than them, it must begin here, not with conquest, but with courage." The officer nodded slowly. "And if they choose war?" Rourke's gaze hardened. "Then they'll learn what humanity has become." The message had been sent. The ultimatum had been spoken. And across the stars, empires old and new turned their eyes toward Veli's prime. The galaxy had changed, and there would be no going back. 3 days had passed since Captain Elias Rourke's broadcast shook the Thalren Empire to its core. Across the capital world of Veli's prime, people still whispered about the humans, about their impossible fleet, their defiant words, their quiet confidence. Some called them fools challenging gods. Others called them prophets heralding a new era. But no one could ignore them anymore. The Emperor had not yet spoken publicly, and that silence felt heavier than any declaration of war. The Senate was paralyzed, split between those who urged a swift strike and those who counseled caution. Yet beneath the surface of all the noise and debate, something far more dangerous was taking shape. Humanity had moved again, and this time, not in orbit of Veli's prime. High above the edge of imperial space, a lonely listening post floated in the darkness. Outpost 77 Beta was little more than a refueling station and sensor relay, but it was the Empire's first line of awareness along the galactic rim, the region they had long called the Uncharted Vale. Few ships ventured there. It was considered empty, lifeless, irrelevant. Until now. "Commander, you'll want to see this." The sensor officer's voice trembled as the screen lit up with new data. Commander Vethrin strode over, annoyance fading into disbelief as he read the incoming readings. "That can't be right," he muttered. "I triple-checked the array, sir. The readings are real." On the main display, dozens of new contacts shimmered into view, massive energy signatures, perfectly synchronized, emerging from folded space just beyond the veil. They weren't Thalren. They weren't any known pirate group. And yet they moved with frightening precision. "Can we identify them?" Vethrin asked. "Not conclusively, but their drive signatures, they're similar to the human fleet at Veli's prime." The room went cold. "Transmit this to High Command immediately," Vethrin ordered, and raised the alert level to crimson. Hours later, in the war chamber beneath the Imperial Palace, Admiral Sereth stood before the Emperor and a wall of holoscreens, each showing data streaming from outposts across the rim. "This isn't an isolated fleet," Sereth said, her voice grim. "We've confirmed at least 4 large human task forces emerging at different points along the border, all well beyond our surveillance lines. And they are not alone. Explain, the Empress said. They are building, Sereth replied. Stations, shipyards, relay hubs. The largest is in the Kethros Expanse, a region we mapped a century ago and dismissed as worthless. They've turned it into a fortress. Senator Karesh slammed his fist on the table. This is an invasion. They are encircling us. No, Sereth said quietly. They are preparing. The Emperor studied the images. Colossal stations wrapped in scaffolding, transport ships ferrying materials, escort fleets weaving silent patterns of defense. None of it looked rushed. None of it looked desperate. It looked planned, decades in the making. How long have they been out there? He asked. At least 30 years, Sereth admitted. Maybe longer. A heavy silence fell over the room. For centuries, the Thalren Empire had considered the uncharted veil beneath its notice too distant, too barren, too unimportant. Humanity had turned that arrogance into a weapon. They waited until we weren't looking, Sereth continued. Then they built their foundation in the shadows. Back aboard the human flagship Dauntless, Captain Rourke stood in the Strategic Command Center, watching the same data, but from the other side. Task Force Orion has completed construction of Bastion 3, reported Commander Hale. The defense grid will be operational within 72 hours. Outpost Alios is now fully crewed and producing supplies for the forward fleets. Rourke nodded. And the Empire? They're moving scouts toward the rim. They've noticed. They were always going to, Rourke said. The question is how they react. Another officer approached, a hint of excitement in her voice. Sir, we've also detected transmissions from 3 minor species inside Thalren space. They are reaching out to us. Rourke turned. What do they want? Talks, trade, protection. One of them, the Kalari Confederation, has openly questioned the Empire's rule since your speech. Rourke stared out at the swirling clouds of Veli's Prime below. The cracks are forming. In the palace, the Emperor stood before a star map, staring at the glowing human positions scattered across the edge of his empire like seeds in the dark. They waited in silence, and we never saw, he murmured. They understand patience, Sereth said. That may be their greatest weapon. And what would you have me do? Sereth hesitated. We cannot treat them as we did the others. They are not raiders to be crushed, nor petitioners to be ignored. They have built something vast. If we attack without understanding it, we may find ourselves fighting an enemy we cannot defeat. Karesh scoffed. Fee talking. No, Sereth replied coldly. Experience. The Emperor walked slowly back to his throne. Then we test them. Test them, Majesty. Sereth asked. Yes. If they wish to be equals, let them prove their resolve. Choose a world near their shadow bases, one that belongs to us but has long been neglected. If they interfere with our reclamation there, we will know their intentions. And if they do not, Karesh asked, then we will know they still fear us. Far from Veli's Prime, the chosen world, Nereos 4, orbited a dying red star. Once a thriving imperial mining colony, it had been abandoned decades ago after its resources were stripped bare. Its current population, less than 3,000 scattered settlers. It was, by all accounts, worthless. And that made it perfect. The Empire dispatched a reclamation fleet of 30 warships and engineering vessels, officially to re-establish order and rebuild infrastructure. Unofficially, it was bait, a provocation wrapped in diplomacy. What they didn't expect was that someone was already there. Unidentified ships approaching Nereo's orbit, reported Lieutenant Chan aboard the Dauntless. Imperial transponders, heavy cruisers and support craft. Rourke studied the tactical display. Time to arrival. 6 hours. Commander Hale frowned. They are sending a show of force. They want to see if we'll blink, Rourke said. We won't. Orders, Captain. Rourke was silent for a moment. Then, dispatch Resolute and Ardent Dawn to Nereo's orbit. Make no hostile moves. But if the Empire attempts to establish control, we will block them. Hale hesitated. And if they fire? Rourke's voice was calm. Then the galaxy learns a lesson today. When the Thalren fleet emerged into Nerio's orbit, they were met not by silence, but by two human ships, smaller than the Dauntless but radiating the same impossible energy signatures. They drifted side by side, motionless, unflinching. Signal from the human vessels, the Thalren captain reported. They claim this system is under Terran protection. The fleet commander laughed. Terran protection? Over this wasteland. Shall we engage? The commander looked at the two ships again. 2 against 30. Impossible odds. And yet, the humans did not move. They did not retreat. They did not even speak again. They simply waited. The commander hesitated, and that hesitation spread like wildfire through the fleet.